Hi. So I'm an ER doc by training, faculty member with the University of Maryland. I still practice at Op Region about 5 shifts a month. And I was then trading at GW where I went to residency and discovered that we see about 500,000 ER visits a year for nosebleeds. And I just couldn't believe the people who come to the ER for nosebleeds. I was just like, what are you doing? Please just put pressure on your nose. Like, I'm trying to take care of gunshot wounds and heart attacks. But people tend to panic when they're nosebleeds, and they almost do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. They put their head backwards instead of forwards. They pinch up here instead of down here, and they don't pull constant pressure. And so this is most common in kids like 2 to 10, older adults 55 to 80. I think that they are the least likely population to manage that problem well. So as a resident, I was often taken together to tongue depressors to make a makeshift cliff, and I was like, there should be a better solution for this. So I designed NasaClip. I'll show it to you guys real quick because it also plays into what I did with my funding from NSF. And Jack, whenever you hold my mic so I can demo this. So if you're having a nosebleed, and you can check us out at table 47 in the exhibit hall if you want to sample or buy a thing, you can medicate the sponges with a vasoconstricted agent like oxymetazoline or Afrin. It also works without meds. You simply clear your nose of clot, inserts enable sponge, rotate it into place, and squeeze shut. So now you can see I have hands-free compression. I continue doing what I can do. I leave it in place 10 to 20 minutes. Release, check for bleeding, can't be rinsed and reinserted. So we have been on the market for about a year now. But when I first thought of this, it was literally just an idea in my head, right? I was in the stage of having tongue depressors that I was taking together. One of the very first things that I did when I was a resident was enter in our GW business plan competition. And there were a lot of people there who said, you should do the I-Corps. So I did NSF I-Corps back in 2015. I did both our local I-Corps, where we did a lot of customer discovery. I think I did initially like their customer interviews to really ask people how they treat nosebleeds, why, who told them that. And then went on to do the NSF National I-Corps, which came with some grant money. And I think that because I stumbled into that opportunity, I have to admit, it really got me on the right track as an entrepreneur early, because what I was forced to do before I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into what I thought was a good idea is I had to validate my product market fit first and do really robust customer discovery. And the other thing that I think happened because I did the I-Corps is that I found out about all these grant opportunities from both NSF and NIH with our SBIR, STTR funding. So I applied for an NSF SBIR Phase 1 grant, and when I was doing that application, I was a physician, I was familiar with research, and I had written some grants, but I had never done this type of grant. And so the very first funding that I got was actually from TEDCO. I did their Builder Fund in 2020, and as a TEDCO portfolio company, I found out about a lot of other opportunities within TEDCO, and one of them was the proposal list. And the proposal fly was really a godsend to me because there's so much of a lift. I think a very daunting process of applying for these grants. It's tedious. There's a lot of just like, I think half of it is that you have to submit it correctly. And if you get that done, then you're halfway there. But to have a really strong proposal, it was great to have the support from the proposal lab. We had experts. They gave you a timeline. You had feedback from your peers. You also learned about a lot of people's technologies. And I was able to submit a grant and successfully was awarded an NSF SCR Phase 1 grant in 2022, which Henry Ahn was on board when I was getting that initial grant. And that money was directed towards developing the pediatric version of the device and also looking specifically at which medications we were going to use on the sponges to make sure that it would work well. And what this has done for me is really validated, I think, my company from an academic standpoint. When you're raising, whether it's angel or venture money, having kind of that feather in your cap that you have SBIR funding, I think is a big plus. It shows the venture capital community and your investor community that this is something that has had, real research, federal grant dollars appropriated to it. And it also obviously opens up future opportunities for additional funding. So what we're doing now is I'm gearing up to submit for NIH fast track funding, which means I'm going to do a Phase 1, Phase 2 to modify the NasaClip device as a drug delivery platform. Because I designed this for nosebleeds, but then discovered it's actually great at delivering other intranasal meds. And we're going to specifically target Narcan or naloxone first, because obviously as a DR doc, I see the opioid epidemic. They're pretty excited. Thank you. I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm really excited about this, and I cannot tell you, it's great to get money, and I'm so fortunate to have support from TEDCO in every single, fundraise that I've had so far, my pre-seed and my seed, but those non-diluted dollars, boy, those are the best. And so you are really doing yourself a disservice if you've not investigated how to interact with the federal government and access grant funds that can really promote your business in more than one way.
Thank you so much. And by the way, if anybody here is interested in the SBIR STTR Proposal Lab, the application is open right now. We are getting our 7th cohort put together, and the deadline is firm, and it's December 13th. It's on TEDCO website. So you need to go there and apply, and then we'll interview you, and hopefully you can make it into the next cohort and actually get help with the STR. So we had 2.5 times higher than the national win rate through our lab. So it's been really good. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Henry. Tell us about what's new with with how NSF is actually soliciting proposals and what has changed.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess that's, do I need this? Yeah. All right, so with every solicitation, there are usually some changes that come along with our proposal requirements. For phase one, the upper limit have gone up from 275 to 305. And we used to have what's called Beat the Odds Bootcamp, which is like a mini I-Corps program that we used to inspire all the phase one companies to go through. Now, with the $305,000 award, they actually have to include, well, I strongly encourage, that's not a requirement, but up to $25,000 going toward doing a full I-Corps. So Beat the Odds, which is like a mini I-Corps programs. And we went back to going to work with lines as opposed to submission windows. Those of you who are familiar, but it's not. Don't worry about it. It's just we're kind of still working the same way. We receive proposals. We'll try to get them processed within 6 months. I think those are some of the major ones. We do have a pilot program, a fast track program, which I generally don't mention very much because it's a pilot program, so there's a lot of restriction to that program. Companies do have to have technology that originates from an NSF-funded academic research. So our goal here was to pretty much kind of shorten the phase one and phase two gap, and that was the main reason that we started this pilot program. If successful, most likely we will expand it at some point down the road, but right now it's a pilot program. Most of the companies will not be eligible to apply for fast track. It starts with the project pitch submission first, so that part hasn't changed. It's still the same. I guess those are some of the major changes.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the fast track, because when people apply for the pitch, you'll see there's a drop down, say, are you in the apply for the fast track? And it's really interesting. So that you have to have the NSF background in order for you to be.
And it is still very restrictive, but we still have people submitting fast track saying, yes, I'm submitting for fast track, and asking for academic lineage and NSF academic grant lineage. They say none. So we immediately just pull up and say, put down an option, say, if they're not eligible. So
how do you get that lineage? Can you tell people how do you get that lineage? Who would be eligible? Like, give us a few examples.
So if your technology originated from an academic lab, for example, that faculty member may have applied for grant or NSF. So as you probably know, NSF is primarily a funding agency, and about 97% of the money, it will go toward funding basic research and translational research under the academic setting. So some of those grants may have gone into supporting those as the development of this technology. Those technologies generally get for the tech transfer office, they'll file a patent, and the startup will license the technology to create a company. So if your company kind of started that way, then you would be that along with I-Corps. Actually, I-Corps, this other requirement that we have to fast track. So if that is, and with that, you may be eligible to apply for this fast track. But the total amount doesn't change. Still, it's for phase one is $305K, phase two is $1.25 billion. In aggregate, the total amount is still the same. So the only difference is that you get approved for both. But then even if you're approved for both, for fast track, but we haven't had long enough history to see what happens. But the idea is that even if you're approved for fast track, while working on phase 1 project, something happens, at the end of the phase 1 project, you do have to do a little presentation to us. And the idea is if the progress quite isn't there for phase 2, we still have the option to not allow the company to proceed to a phase 2. But everything goes well and there's no issue. Well, our hope is that they'll be able to transition right to phase 2. So you don't have to worry about waiting another 6+ months to get the phase 2 application in and review and to start the phase 2 project.
Listen, well, thank you so much. And from a perspective of any kind of technologies you currently are excited about to get proposals, is there anything like that?
So I handle the biomedical technologies top there. So everything that I work with, all the companies that I work with, they're doing things like diagnostics, medical imaging, materials for biomedical application, drug delivery platform. So those are the type of technologies that I see. I wouldn't necessarily call excited about. So one thing that's interesting to me is that, it's a fun job. You get to read a lot about different technologies. And sometimes I receive proposals with certain technologies that it's just kind of out there. You've never seen anything like it, but it's a good project and they get funded. And I'm thinking, then I'll never see a project like this ever again. So who's going to develop a technology like this? And then another review cycle comes along. There's another proposal and then another proposal. I don't know if it's because there was a conference somewhere that emphasized the need, but I think that's what kind of makes things fun. One thing that I do see quite a bit these days is that a lot of companies are coming in with some sort of AI/ML technologies. Even in diagnostics, they'll say, hey, we'll incorporate this into our bias. And so I do see that a lot more often these days where machine learning or AI is involved. For those of you who are in this space, one thing that I would like to suggest is if you're working with AI, just to explain a little bit more about what it is that you do and at least enough details for people to be able to evaluate. Some people will just throw the term out there and say, hey, this is great. We'll use this. We'll automatically spit out and diagnose certain things. And we go to the team and there's nobody but the AI backs it. And thinking, hey, how are they want to develop this? And not enough detail in there for us to evaluate. So those companies generally don't do well in when they go through the review process.
Well, thank you. And this is a great segue to I-Corps. Because a lot of times when we see people who have not gone to the I-Corps program, they're applying to the lab or other TEDCO programs, we see the huge disparity between the capability of people who have gone through that preparation versus the people who have not. There's something absolutely amazing that actually happens in the I-Corps program, and there are different types of I-Corps programs. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Happy to do that. So everybody's heard that term I-Corps probably several times today, and a great endorsement from Liz. I appreciate that. I will say you kind of have to start with, well, what does actually I-Corps mean, right? Because there are lots of different sort of interpretations of it and sort of program levels. So I'm going to talk about really three really important distinctions. We have regional I-Corps. Our regional I-Corps is offered to teams from generally the regions that we serve. We happen to be the Mid-Atlantic hub, so we serve all the way from Pennsylvania to North Carolina. The regional programs typically are relatively brief, but they require 20 interviews. And you might say, interviews about what? Right? What are you doing when you talk to people? Are you talking to people at Starbucks? What are you actually doing? So when people ask us what makes I-Corps different, I tell them there's one thing that makes I-Corps very different than anything else you're going to see. It's a structured approach to doing this discovery for very deep tech teams. Henry mentioned some. We get some that are working on individual elements that are going to be buried inside of someone else's device or system. If you pick up any entrepreneurial book on bookshelf, take any entrepreneurial class, you will find they typically all teach to that kind of team. We do. We've had over 10 years doing it. We've worked with well over 3,000 teams at the national level, which I'll talk about in a minute. But if you rolled up all the regional teams, it's well over 10,000, easily. And the number of people we reached is well over 100,000, no question. So regional level, short, brief programs, an introduction to what we call customer discovery. And really what that means to you is getting out and testing hypotheses, people that you think are going to help. We have a lot of great entrepreneurs like Liz who come in inspired by a problem they see. This is fantastic. You love those types of entrepreneurs. And as she mentioned, you're surprised what you actually were when you start to go out and talk to people, right? So first and foremost, we want to get you out talking to people that really matter. Now, the next step is the national program. This is the one that Henry mentioned and Liz mentioned that she went through. This is the one where you get funded. The regional programs are free to you, but you don't get funding. The NasaClip program, you do get funded. $50,000 grant. By the time some of the money is taken off for overhead and other things, you get about $40,000. Now, this money should be spent for customer discovery, traveling, going to trade shows and conferences, literally being on the floor, being in an emergency room if you can, to see how people are doing the work, not just talking to them, but actually immersing yourself in that environment. That's why that funding is there. There is no other program that I'm aware of in the world that provides funding to do that. In 1994, I was an SBIR awardee myself, spinning technology out of a university. There was no such thing as I-Corps. I was a third-generation civil engineer, and I certainly did not. I had to talk to any.
You knew everything, right? You knew everything that they needed.
Yes, I should have. I'll just leave it at that. So the national program, 100 interviews are for 6 or 7 weeks, and here's the tagline. If I say nothing else today, remember this one. Let the evidence beat your credibility. The evidence will come from your discovery. When you apply for an SBIR grant coming out of the I-Corps program, you'll have 100+ interviews. You'll have a map of your ecosystem. Hopefully you'll have a range list of the needs that your customers have. And there are a lot of awesome SBIR proposals about a lot of really cool technology. But people that have been to I-Corps, their commercialization plan usually isn't where it needs to be. Now, one more level. Henry mentioned this. There now is an I-Corps program for SBIR companies, as he mentioned. Now, we've been sort of piloting that over the last several years. We're reaching about 1/3 to a quarter to 1/3 to teams now of the companies now. Next year, our hope is we reach almost all of them. We'll be running 3, hopefully, cohorts a quarter for SBIR companies. So if you happen to apply to an SBIR grant, get a phase 1, you will have that opportunity to take I-Corps. I've had chiefs who've been to the regional program, been the national program, and did the SBIR I-Corps program. I sit on the curriculum committee for NSF, and our goal is to build a series of programs that go on one another. But they're all based on the same foundational concept. Customer discovery. What can we learn about the customer's real needs, and can we validate that with evidence from these conversations and observations? So I'll stop there. I can obviously talk.
Oh, thank you. We'll have a little bit of an opportunity for questions at the end, but I wanted to actually ask Jack. So with all these programs, the SBIR program funding, the non-dilutive funding, seed funding that people get, and the I-Corps participation, when people come to you on the venture side of things, what kinds of things do you look for in the companies? What do you think? How do you think TEDCO can help those companies? What is out there?
Thank you very much on behalf of TEDCO, what I work for coming in. This is great to see everybody here. I'm sure you've been thanked, and I'll thank you as well for being here. I think, I need to take a picture as a standing room only for the very first time in my entire career. If I were here by myself, I guarantee you my mom would be the only ways. But I think that it underscores the importance of this investment vehicle, not only to Dr. Clayborne's type of company at a very early stage, but also to us as an investor looking at that company. And if you think about what our team does at a pre-seed, seed, venture stage, we're trying to place bets based on the best odds of what is going to happen with that company, ultimately getting to an exit. We have a dual mandate at TEDCO, the investment team, economic development, and financial returns. We try not to forget about the and financial returns part of that. I think that when we look at a company, we can make an investment. But going through I-Corps, getting SBIR or STTR funding is a real stamp of approval to us, because other people have looked at it, especially having the government look at a industry sector or a problem that needs to be solved and saying, that's a big enough problem for us to put $1 million into. That is important to us. So when you look at the applications that we get, there's a lot of unknowns in there. A lot of it is hypothesis. The more facts that we can pull out of that, and they're substantiated, like Edmund said, I mean, let evidence be your guide. I think I wrote it down. Credibility, I had to write it down. But I like that, Ray, because you can do customer discovery. I think we all think, hey, I've got this problem, everybody else is going to have the same problem, so I know people will want it. You go through customer discovery, you find out that it's only people at 2 o'clock in the morning who are doom scrolling or whatever it is, and their phones. Those are the only people that want this, right? Customer discovery is a big part of it. I think also the commercialization plan is another proof point that we can get, right? We can see that there's been some significant thought put into it, and so it's a stamp of approval. It increases the chances of you getting funding with us. So if you look at it, in fact, I-Corps increases your chances of getting SBIR, STTR funding. You've got STTR, SBIR funding increases your chances of getting pre-seed, then CAS, and that's your own goal.
Absolutely. And what kind of funding opportunities are there for people who are curious? Like, what kinds of investments does this today?
So we have, we're going to present, to be cautious because I want to get in front of media on this. I can talk about looking at Steven. I can talk about concept. Yeah, I'm all right. Do you want my? Oh, you're seeing. So I'll update my resume after I see it.
He was
I guess. So there's a concept capital, which is really like first step. And that is, I've got an idea, but I can't tell if it's manufacturable. Get to a minimally viable product or proof of concept. So there's that, all the way through to funding available for a venture round. So really is like $25,000 to $1.5 million. A lot of that's driven by statute and the good regulations that we follow to deploy that capital. But essentially, it's from very beginning, from ideation to IPO. We're in on every stage of that. I also don't want to forget about our MII family as well. Really works closely with this group. I mean, any technology coming out of university, federal labs, and then MII funding to just determine there's a there, right? And that's and they work closely at the tech transfer offices. And then the stem cell program, which can provide you also funding for a CRO to find a lead or a mechanism of action and a drug discovery and stem cells. So there's lots of different funding service. I tried to do that. 2 slides in my head. I'm not sure I did.
All right. Well, thank you. And what kind of advice would you give to the entrepreneurs?
I mean, it's all about de-risking your plan. And the more you could de-risk that plan, the higher the valuation is going to be, the more money you're likely to get, the more syndicated investors you're going to, but you're a quality bubble as well. So it really is do everything you can to de-risk it and call out what you don't know. Be very upfront that you don't know. I don't know, Dr. Clayborne, if you went through that where it was like, hey, I don't know about this, but these things I'm out. Sorry to be moderator here.
No, this is doing really good.
So I would say that a whole reason that I have been as successful as I have is because I started with the foundational elements that Edmund talked about. when you have an idea, you don't realize how closely married you are to like your baby. You think it's the best thing ever. And it's hard for you to like conceptualize that maybe it's not going to work out exactly as you expect. Like even for me, I'm like, I'm an ER doc. I take care of this all the time. Like I know I'm a mom, I know what needs to be done. What the customer discovery allowed me to understand is, okay, well, I have a great idea that might work in my ER this way, but how is this really going to work in real life with a business that I need to build? How am I going to get it off the ground? Like, am I really servicing a B2B channel versus a B2C channel, right? Because I look at NasaClip as the Band-Aid of nosebleeds, and I think initially was very focused on B2C, like selling directly to customers. But we've now built our business where we have had an emphasis over 70% of our initial first $100,000 of revenue has been B2B, right? Selling to hospitals, selling to Disney, who rolled us out to all their cruise ships at parks. How I didn't think about cruises is beyond me because the demographic of cruises is young kids and older adults, but it was talking to older adults who talked about how it can be this to have a nosebleed because they're on blood thinners when they're traveling. That allowed me to think about, okay, well, I need to position my business that I'm allowing this technology to be available to people who are servicing these end users that are going to actually need the device. And you can't always see that without doing like that groundwork. So I think even if you don't have the opportunity right now to do a regional or national I-Corps, you can still adopt the principles that they are teaching, which is that you need to get out and interview people and talk to who you think your customer is. And usually you're going to stumble upon really useful information. You also don't know who might have an in for you. Like just talking to people, you run into connections. You see people who might want to help you. If I talk to 5 or more people, at least one of them has a kid that bleeds all the time or something else that relates to nosebleeds that I would never have known if I didn't talk to them. So I think that's really important. And because I got that momentum as a federal funding, when it came to TEDCO being able to be the first people to invest in me as part of their filter fund, I think that it was really helpful that I had that lineage because they're taking the biggest risk in those early investments. So anything you can say, like Jack did mention, to de-risk your technology and show that you have proof of concept will move forward. And then in your subsequent rounds, it just adds from there, right? Now you have the NSF lineage, you have I-Corps experience. TEDCO was really helpful in me getting other funding from institutional investors because I had that in the background. And that is really hugely important as you're moving forward because you're going to start going after more and more capital and the standards get higher and higher as you move up.
And Henry, can you mention about risk? Because risk is a big component of NSF versus de-risking. Can you tell about that different?
Well, I mean, phase 1 is all about de-risking your technology. So if this is more or less a straightforward engineering work where you just put together components and there you go, you have your device, it'll work great, then where is de-risking in there? So our goal with the phase 1 project is to mainly to help you de-risk the technology. And so that when you approach in that, then it becomes, there's more credibility with your technology and what you've done so that you'll be able to raise more money. Just about all the companies that I work with under my topic, under environmental technologies topic, you will not be able to get to your revenue. So with the type of money that we can provide, about $2 million. So our goal is that by helping you to de-risk your technology at this early stage when it's really difficult to raise money, hopefully this will allow you to go out there, find some private investors, or find some strategic partners to work with so that you can continue to grow your business.
Awesome. Well, we have a little bit of time left. So questions? Oh, go ahead.
So you mentioned that you focus on biomedical. Are there people at NSF that focus on different categories?
Yeah, so one thing about NSF is that we're just like TEDCO, we're technology agnostic. So as long as you're working with some form of innovative technology that has commercial application, there's probably a bit somewhere we're going to top it. Our emphasis is on startups. So if you're a startup, trying to develop some sort of innovative technology that has commercial application, there probably a fit somewhere. So my suggestion is to just go to our website, seedfund.nsf.gov. There's a place where you can submit a project pitch. At this stage, you're not being evaluated. You're just submitting your information so that we can assess the fit of your technology for program. If you're like to submit a full proposal, then you can go ahead and put together your proposal and submit. But after you submit your project pitch, you'll be selecting a topic that you believe is the best fit. But when you're back, there are times that we have to move the the proper pitch around to another topic, we believe there's a better fit under the other topic. So you'll know exactly which topic is how to submit your people.
All right, go with it. Good.
I had an SBIR proposal that was declined, and
What's it?
several. And no, this is no reflection on the workshop. I took the workshop with Alessia, and it was great, but it was after I was declined instead of before. But I just wanted to ask if a new proposal references the previous one in any way, or you just try to resolve the areas that were criticized as if it's all brand new.
Yes, what this to NSS? Yes, okay. So the reason that I asked this is because each agency works a little different. So places like NIH and DOD, they have their STTR program. Following their solicitation guideline would be geared toward. For NSF, if you're declined for funding, we don't put a limit as to how many times you can come back. So you can only come back, submit another project pitch, and submit a proposal. But when you do that, it always helps if you, as long as your underlying technology is still the same for the intended market, it always helps to prepare that one pager. It doesn't count against the 15-page limit for the full proposal. It will be submitted as a supplemental document. And it's that document, that one pager should list all the weaknesses that you found within the panel summary. Because that's what the panel as a group put together as a list of weaknesses. And just under each weakness, just talk about how you address that weakness.
Right.
And this one pager, this can only help you as long as they're coming back after having addressed those issues, because it shows our review panel. And people will know, by the way, on the cover page, you have to check off and say you've gone through the process before, you were not funded. So our reviewers know that you were not funded in the past, and immediately some of them are thinking, well, what were the concerns before? Did the company address those issues before coming back? So sometimes they do look for that one pager first. And if you addressed all those concerns, that you're kind of starting on a positive note. There may be some other concerns along the way that we discussed, but at least so there's no guarantee that it'll be funded, but it's guaranteed to be a stronger submission than the previous one.
Can I add on that? Just because this is a helpful experience. So I was awarded an NSF SBIR Phase 1. I actually applied for Phase 2 funding that I did not get to look at the drug delivery platform. And some of the feedback was that I needed real clinical data, which I could not get from NSF. NIH will fund clinical human subjects research. So we pivoted to now applying for NIH funding, specifically from NIDA, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, because we're looking at drug addiction, opioid overdose. And some of the criticisms that we got in the rejection of the Phase 2 was that we were de-risking what we were going towards enough because I couldn't really conduct the clinical research needed to move the technology significantly along, I think, that in a way that they would like to see. So it is important to understand, where your technology is and who you need to ask for money from. That was a big learning experience for me. If I had really thought about it, I knew I needed that clinical data to begin with, and I knew that NSF was limited in the way they could fund that kind of research. So I probably should have pivoted earlier. But, we're using the feedback from the panel and now moving forward for applying for an NIH fast track and having a good understanding of which institute within NIH we need to apply to. So make sure that you understand both sides, where your technology fits in, and how that might change from your Phase 1 to Phase 2 issues.
All right, that lady in the last room.
Well, that was kind of anticipated the question that I wanted to ask. I refer a lot of businesses as an economic developer to TEDCO, to I-Corps, and to SBIR programs, and I often make suggestions of the kinds of agencies that would be interested in their technology and the problem they're solving. But I was wondering, how to refine that, or how they go through the process, what happens at the SBIR and perhaps at the agency side for them to say, maybe this isn't the best fit for you, you should go over here, and how do we get more information to them?
Basically, SBIR.gov, you actually could go there and search different topics and then figure out which agency usually finds those topics. Jolene in the back, bro.
Yeah, I'm a AI EdTech entrepreneur, Storytime AI CEO. Curious on education technology, if there's a specific stack within NSF that you apply for that. if there's been a lot of funding on ed tech related projects, and then does past performance of the entrepreneur have any effect on acceptance rates?
So, so within our agency, my colleague Parvati is the one who does FTech. So she would be the Parvati. It could be Parvati. It could be Lindy or Parvati. So they'll be able to answer that question for you a little better. But we do fund ed tech faculties. But one thing that you have to be careful about is, there still has to be innovation somewhere, coach. And so that part is really important. And when our ed tech program director retired years ago, I was asked to handle some of those portfolio. So I got involved a little bit. One of the most frustrating things for me was that there were a lot of innovation there, but not on the technology side. You may have some great teaching methodology, but no technology involved. And I remember talking to, when I was at TEDCO, I actually, there was a lady who said, "Kitch taught Spanish." And I came, my first entrepreneur expo that I came to, Castro tried to link to NSF. I read into her and I said, "Well, did you look at NSF?" And she said, "Well, they don't really qualify, but there was no innovation in our technology." So she knew better than I did that. So that component is definitely very important.
What about the second part of my question in terms of past performance? I have a previous exit. I'm curious. Yeah, helps.
The fact that you're a serial entrepreneur, you've done well in the past, that speaks volumes. So that'll add more credibility. But just serial entrepreneur, as successful like this, those are great. I remember many years ago, I was talking to one investor. He's an angel investor, an old man, who used to review for me many years ago. And people were talking about some serial entrepreneur, trade experience. And he got very upset. And he said, "Hey, I've been married 4 times before. That does not make me a good husband." So just keep in mind that's true. Just because you've done it before, it doesn't make you a good entrepreneur. But showing that you've done it successfully, does add more credibility.
All right. So we have a chance for one more question. Yeah, go ahead.
So we were so fortunate that to get one top opportunity immediately after our past trade work on NICHR. So I-Corps is really, really helpful. It is intense. At that time when we did I-Corps, it was very scary for us. Until that 2 months of our church. So my only general comment that Cyprus will have some kind of hollow platform called our because it was really, really helpful. But now we are taking that we got lost because we did the I-Corps back in 2016. After that, it was like there is no such annexation. Sorry.
Do you use the business model Canvas?
Oh, yes, it went down. So it actually helps us, it changes very. So on an email, we wrote our commercialization plan for S2 without paying even one single penny to any professional. And that is the contribution of the I-Corps. But
yeah, I would say that's your lingering continuing education is that BMC. You can continue to fill that in until you IPO, right? And it keeps you. I wish I had one for my check, because it would keep me on trail.
Speaking of keeping us on track, right? We're pretty much at the end of our session, so 11:46. So nice to enjoy your break.